switch gears a little bit, Jim, and talk about you as a pilot. I know when I first met you, I heard that you have a similar background to mine, that you started out as a journalist. That's right. And I started in the same boat, and here we are both in aviation. I want to hear your accidental entry into aviation story.
I had breakfast at Dulles Airport, Washington last Saturday morning, with a guy named Randy Babbitt, who was my first flight instructor down at the University of Georgia when we were both trying to figure out how to get out of the University of Georgia. Randy Babbitt was one of my fellow students there at the University of Georgia. He was a freshman. He came up from Miami. His dad was a Eastern Airlines pilot. He came up from Miami. He couldn't have a car when he was a freshman at the University of Georgia. That was the rule. So he brought his airplane, Cessna 140. And he asked
That's fantastic.
Randy didn't have a car because he was a freshman. So he brought his Cessna 140. And I ran into him in the house there one day, and he said, I don't have a car to go to the airport, but do you want to go flying? So he took me out, and we went flying, and so that was my first flight. I would fly. His girlfriend lived in Daytona Beach, so we would fly from Athens, Georgia, down to Daytona Beach, and it was just wonderful. It was a great experience. So I had breakfast with him in the Marriott there at Dulles Airport last Saturday morning.
What does he think about what's going on in the FAA and next gen? Is he feeling pretty positive about that, or?
Well, I will not speak for Randy. He's out of the FAA now. He's retired pretty much, but he still consults with a lot of people, and he's very much concerned. He wouldn't mind me saying this, I don't think. He's very concerned. And Randy was executive director of the Airline Pilots Association for a number of years. He's very concerned with the lack of incoming new talent into the field, as everybody is. It's a huge problem, and it needs to be addressed about 3 years ago, and it has not been. And we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. The airlines are in big trouble. The regionals can't fly their trips because they don't have enough people. What's good about it is the salaries are going up and up and up because you have multiple offers to the flight crew and maintenance people. There's no dearth of jobs. The dearth is the dearth of flight crew. So he would say that certainly, and he talks to people in Washington all the time. I know this because he told me. He says this needs to be fixed, and it can be fixed, but it needs to be addressed. And that's the way I got out of journalism school. I did work in journalism briefly, but I bit the aviation, or I was bitten by the aviation bug.
And the pay is a little better in aviation.
Well, unless you're a star journalist, which I wasn't, you're not going to get rich.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Well, my story's a little different. I got dragged in by my husband, not the future FAA administrator, but interesting thing. And I will let you know that my daughter is in training to become a commercial pilot. So I'm at least contributing one pilot to the need there.
Yeah, good for you. She'll love it.
She already does. She got bit pretty bad by that bug. So how many hours do you have flying Falcon products? Do you know off the top of your head, Jim?
No, 20 some odd thousand, and probably 6,000 or 8,000 sitting behind people in the simulator. So it's almost all Falcon. A little Gulfstream, few years of Gulfstream, few years of Global Express, but mostly Falcon.
So what are the crazy things that you train for in the sim with the Falcon?
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as crazy, but what I say to people is our job as an instructor is to learn what the flight crews come through, what they know how to fly approach into Teterboro Airport. If they don't by this time, they need to go to truck driver school or something. So that's not the issue. And they've all done engine failures and all of that sort of thing. So they all know that. Our job is to isolate situations that are unlikely to be familiar to them and present those to them. And curiously enough, one of the things that I find a lot of people used to know, and maybe are not so familiar anymore, is entering visual flight rules, traffic patterns, and such as that. People forget the little techniques like that, and just to go through. We always have to go through the systems failures, which is something people don't see unless they're in training. So it's very important to identify things that are unique to those people and to understand the systems. And on this particular airplane, it's still analog enough so that we can understand how the systems work together. The later airplanes, the digital airplanes, there's so many computers talking to each other in there. Nobody on the planet really knows how all that stuff works, because it works differently every time.
Well, you have to be prepared, and you guys do a great job of doing that at Flight Safety. I did not mention that my daughter is at Flight Safety Academy, learning how to be a pilot
in Florida. She's in Florida.
She's in Florida, Vero Beach, flying all sorts of VFR patterns with all sorts of flight schools at that airport. It's a little bit hectic, I think. So what's your favorite airport to fly into?
I don't have any favorites. I mean, Dulles is a great airport. You could hardly do anything wrong there. They've got four wonderful long runways, all the approaches you could want, and so forth. So it's a very easy airplane to fly in and out of. But all airports are great. In New York, I like Westchester because it's on the north side of Westchester White Plains. It's on the north side of the New York area, so it's you can sort of ease in and out of there without getting into the actual New York traffic area. I flew one arrival into the the old Hong Kong airport, which was famous for an approach which you flew into the side of a mountain, and it had a big checkerboard paint, a big yellow and black checkerboard paint on it. And you don't continue toward that. So you go to about 2 miles from that, turn right, and there's the runway. You don't see the runway, then you go flying again. But I don't have any favorite. I mean, everything's great.
So have you ever had a landing that was a little bit perilous, either during the landing or after you landed?
Yeah, I guess so. There's all sorts of levels of that. I mean, I've been very fortunate. Early on, the runways didn't have this grooving done. Now they all have grooves. So grooves allow the standing water to evacuate the surface of the runway. So you don't have this thing that we used to have called hydroplane, which was basically skidding. All the highways, when you go around across a bridge or something now, you hear that, and that's they've all been grooved. So that's a very great benefit we have now. We used to get a lot of anti-skid system locks, unlocks, and this and that. The worst case, in my opinion, is thunderstorm-related wind shear. So you have to, to the owners, I would say, if your pilot tells you, some days you just don't want to be up in the environment. This is one of them. I wouldn't second guess those him or her. That's their job. Is to sometimes we'd like to say yes, but the right answer is no. Today is one of those times.
That is fantastic advice to owners, because pilots know when it's going to be a little dicey, and owners definitely need to listen to that. The pilot's life is on the line as well, and they're usually going to steer you right.
Exactly.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for speaking with me today about your experiences, not just as a pilot, but as a check airman for the Falcon series. I can tell that you have a love for this plane that you've been flying for 50 years. That's right. I did math real quick from 1969. And I just want to thank you for being on with us today. Would love to tell people how they can reach out to you if they want to be trained by you at Flight Safety in Teterboro. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, they call Teterboro Flight Safety. We have Teterboro Flight Safety is easy to find, and we have a great staff there. Lovely people, very dedicated, and I am not the star by any means. So we would love to talk to them, or our manager Danny Rubio would love to chat with anybody and explain what we do there. And it's a great facility, a great company, and I encourage anybody to reach out to us. Love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Thanks again so much, Jim, for being on today.